Welcome to Hidden History, Stories from the Secret City. I'm Keith McDaniel, along with my co-host, Ray Smith. Hello, Ray.
Hi, Keith. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. We are recording this on one of our off Saturdays, but that's okay. So
Yeah.
why don't you introduce our guest today, Ray?
Well, we have with us today Linda Parsons, who is the poet laureate for Knoxville, and her friend Kevin Collins. And I'll let Linda do any additional introductions that she would like to get folks to understand what we're going to talk about today, Linda.
Oh, sure. Well, thank you so much, Ray and Keith, for having us on. Kevin Collins is joining us. He's the director of what will be a staged reading of my new play, Atomic Lullaby, on November the 2nd. That will be downtown Knoxville, and we'll get to the details later, I'm sure. But we're very happy to be here today.
Well, we're glad to have you. Let's start by giving us a little bit more background into your role as Poet Laureate, and then tell us how you came to write the Atomic Lullaby.
Okay. Well, I'm fairly new as being poet laureate. I began on July the 1st, and I have a 2-year term into
Okay.
2027. And I've already started various projects, and so I'm very excited about everything. It's taking a while to get some things up and running, but everything is progressing, and I'll be announcing those things as they happen. But the reason we're here today is to talk about my play, Atomic Lullaby. And I this is the play is based on a family story in which an uncle, my stepmother's brother, served in the U.S. Navy in Japan in the late 1950s, post-war, and he brought home to Knoxville a Japanese wife and daughter. And I had a nice relationship with my cousin growing up, and somehow their story always stayed in my mind. Even though they didn't talk too much about their circumstances, I just always wondered about the couple, the young sailor and the young Japanese wife, and how they adjusted to life in Knoxville. But for my play, I've set it in Oak Ridge, kind of for maximum conflict. And two of the women in the play, the mother and the aunt of the sailor, are former Manhattan Project workers. They were both the Calutron girls. So you have that a clash of cultures and of people who had been sworn enemies in the past, now trying to form a family. And I'll let Kevin talk a little bit more if he would like to.
Well, it is fascinating to see this kind of microcosm of world history here, um, and it's not just where they all come together, but they all come together and live in the same house, and so obviously it's a small house. They have to move the aunt's sewing room out so that the couple can move in and have a little space of their own, and so it's 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 not just clash of cultures. It's lots of people living in a small space in a hot August. Um, it's actually set on August 6th, 1958. So it's a hot August day in East Tennessee, and so that just adds to all the conflict that goes with it. So that part of it is fascinating, as well as the historical context that Linda set it in.
I imagine the dynamics of that family in a small building, small home, would be an issue to deal with regardless of the culture differences. But when you add that to it, I'm sure there are other things that come into play. I must tell you that I have a personal friend who married a Japanese lady, and they lived in Oak Ridge. She has passed away now. He's now living in Florida. But we introduced the two of them when they came to a retreat that we had from our church, and it was an interesting introduction in that the man was looking for someone to have a relationship with, but he was not having any luck, and he was becoming frustrated by it. And then, of course, the Japanese lady, the same situation. She was here in the States, and she had not married either. So we just thought, hey, let's introduce these two. And amazing how they connected quickly. And they had a good life together and enjoyed living in Oak Ridge. She brought some Japanese culture to Oak Ridge, and the making of the little uh, paper mache, paper birds. I forget what you call them. You know those.
Friends. The
Yes,
people.
the swings, yeah.
Mm.
And she made balls of twine that was decorated, very intricately
Mm.
decorated. So we have several of those as gifts that came from them to us. So I understand the situation, but from an entirely different standpoint. I'm not aware that there was any significant issues. Uh,
Right.
but again, that I think is the exception to the rule in all likelihood.
Yeah.
Now, I would imagine. I'm sorry, Linda. I was going to say I would imagine that this takes place in 1958. So it's a much different attitude
Yes.
than exists in even the last 20 years.
Right.
Because the war was that's so close to the after the war that creates a lot of the drama that I'm sure is as part of the play. Can you talk about that just a little bit?
Yes, well, they're all very scarred from the war in different ways. The young Japanese woman, Kiku, lost her whole family in the war. And she and the young sailor have bonded over the loss of their fathers because Wade's father is in the Veterans Hospital in Murfreesboro.
Mm-hmm.
He experienced PTSD, which of course was not called anything like that at that time. And so he's absent, the fathers are absent. And so I really feel that that's a strong bond between them, that father loss. And they've all lost various things. And the aunt lost her fiance and all of that. Yeah, the loss of the uh, kind of all the men in their lives except for the young man who returns. So yeah, and I think as the play goes on, the women are more and more connected to by that loss, and they develop a deeper understanding of how universal this loss is, and that reconciliation is possible, that peace and a family are possible for them.
And actually, uh, Kiku's brother and and Wade's father were both on Iwo Jima on opposite sides, and so that comes out at a point in the play. It's like, okay, this is just a lot of stuff coming together here to raise the issues.
Up and
So,
up and
so why did you decide to write a play instead of maybe a book, novel?
Oh, a novel is not in my wheelhouse, as they say. I am a working playwright, and I've had 7 productions, all locally, and I've been writing poetry for many years, for 40 plus years, and I've been writing plays off and on for the last 25 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
So it for some reason the story just started to grab a hold of me, and I became kind of driven, and I started my research right before the pandemic, the end of 2019. And then I kind of wrote it as the year turned January is always a really good time for me to write, and right after the holidays. And so it just grew and grew in my mind. And once I got this one particular idea, which is a little strange for the play, but I feel is kind of the key for everyone coming together. Even though my cousin is very much alive in Newmarket, um, I decided to make their child, Wade and Kiku's child, unborn, and that Kiku loses the baby before they come to the US, come to the States,
Mm-hmm.
but they marry anyway. And so this lost child is a character that's kind of a surreal character. She's there, but she's not. So she has a special light and a special place on stage. And she acts as she has many roles. I feel that she represents the casualties of war. She represents, of course, the intense loss on both sides, both sides. And she represents hope. She represents the possibility of reconciliation, all of these things in history. She gives a little bit of background history, both about the war and about the Manhattan Project. So I didn't want to overdo it on the educational side, but I feel that there is some education of history that's going on and is needed. I think it's very needed. Kevin, you want to?
Yeah, because the character's name is Linda, and she's a really fascinating character to try to portray because she has so many different aspects. It's every time she speaks, it's almost a different character that comes out, and 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 so she interjects in the dialogue everybody else is carrying on, and so she's always here, kind of, omniscient and omnipresent to be a part of what's going on, except she's not really part of what's going on. She's separated because she doesn't really exist. And so you get, as Linda said, this surreal sense of being and non-being, and it's just fascinating to try to put that on stage in a way that makes sense. So yeah.
Right, right.
I would imagine that that character is sort of and I don't use the term spirit in a sense of a spirit,
Mm,
but it represents a spirit of maybe of 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 the dynamic that's going on, of all the dynamics, different dynamics that are going on in the drama of the story. So
yes, it is basically a family story, but yet her presence, non-presence, kind of it adds an element of theatricality to it, and it lifts it, it raises it beyond being just a family story, which I hope brings it into the universal, because of course in our society now we're so torn and
mhm.
so divided, and so afraid of what is the other. So anyway, I feel that she has a lot on her shoulders, this Linda does,
Yeah.
in the play.
Talk a little bit about the logistics of doing something like this, of putting this stage reading together of a new play. Obviously, this is not the first time you've done that. So,
Well, it's the first time I've done it kind of on my own, but I'm very fortunate in that I've known Kevin for quite a while and admired his work as an actor and in other roles.
mhm.
And the fact that he is a member of ARIPA, which is based in, I guess, Knoxville and Oak Ridge. And I'll let Kevin describe that. ARIPA is the Oak Ridge Environmental Peace Alliance, and they're sponsoring the play, which I'm very grateful for. And so I have their support, and they're bringing a panel of experts to talk after the reading. But so I have that support, but I contacted the location where the reading will be, which is the Old City Performing Arts Center, which is where River and Rail Theater is housed, and
Mhm.
that's on 111 State Street. That's where the reading will be. And Kevin and I have been doing PR, doing a lot of sharing on social media, various things, and now very kindly being on your Hidden History show. So we're trying in various ways to promote the piece, and obviously my goal is to have a full production one day.
Sure.
Um, yeah, so trying to bring all those things together, and Kevin brought in a wonderful cast and a great stage manager. So I'm just really very happy with the way everything's coming together.
And we've been working on this since February, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So we started the meeting in February, and um, myself and another person read it, and so we had this discussion: are we going to do this? Do we want to, help sponsor this, and how are we going to put it all together? And so went through a grant application, which was a little, it didn't really come through, but went through the process, and so went through that. Now we've got it cast, and we've been rehearsing, and so it's all building to the climax of the production itself, and so uh, it's not a short process, and actually Linda had a table reading of it a couple of years ago.
Yes.
To hear it, and now the stage reading is the second process of or second part of the process is to see it, and each one of these calls for revisions, and so after she's heard it and she sees it, she can revise it to make it smoother for a full production, uh, 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 and make it a more finished product. So it's not just something you sit down overnight. It's a multi-year process even to get to a staged reading.
All right.
For people who don't know what a stage reading means, tell us exactly what does that mean? I mean, people they think of a play, they go to a play, but a stage reading is different.
Yeah, I'll start with a table reading. A table reading is where you have your script and the actors just sit at a table and read their parts. And so you get vocal inflections and sometimes facial expressions. A staged reading is where, um, generally speaking, I mean, there's different definitions, but generally speaking, you put the actors on stage, you do some blocking for movement, so that the playwright can see how the people work together and the set design works together, and the actors still have their books, their scripts in their hands, and so they're actually reading it. They don't have the parts memorized. We've rehearsed it enough to know the parts, but it's not memorized. So that makes it a staged reading, so that the playwright can see what's going on, and build it to the finished product.
Right. There was a great, thank you for mentioning the previous table reading, Kevin. It was read as part of the Marion Brown's Circle series in 2023 at the UT Lab Theater. And that's part of Clarence Brown. So that reading got great responses. The audience was really into it. They said, okay, when is the production going to be, And so I have been talking to different artistic directors around town, and like Kevin said, it's a very long process. And so I hope that this upcoming stage reading will be another step, as you said, Kevin, and we'll get maybe a larger audience and more interest, and people thinking, yes, we need to put this on. We need for people to see this, because I really do feel I've just been driven to get this out. I feel it's a transformative piece. And because we're always going to have wars, unfortunately, and we've got to work for more peace and more connection between people despite their differences. And it's it's like this play is a little microcosm of that hope and possibility.
Who are some of the, if you don't mind mentioning some of the actors that you've got? Because some of the folks watching this may know some of them.
Oh, of course. I've written them all down, so I don't forget anyone here. We have Rain Palmer, who's reading the part of Kiku.
Mhm.
Even though she's not Japanese, she's doing a beautiful job. She acts very frequently around in the region, and she's wonderful. Abigail McCarter, who's a former UT student, she's reading for Linda. She's fantastic as well. Caroline King plays the Aunt Ruth, who is really the antagonist to Kiku's protagonist in the play. Ruth is she's angry, she's bitter, she doesn't like this intrusion into her life, and she still feels that the Japanese are her enemy. And Deanna Serber, sorry, Deanna
Yeah.
Serber, she's doing a beautiful job with the mother, with Helen, and Caleb Burnham plays the young sailor. So it's a real tight knit little family in this very tight space, as Kevin.
Deanna Serber is a vocal coach.
Yeah.
In Knoxville. A lot of people have used her for vocal stuff. Rain Palmer, I've been working with her for 14 years, I guess, and lots of different roles, and she's just wonderful. She can adapt to anything, and she's actually married to Caleb. So Wade and Kiku as a couple are also Caleb and Rain as a couple. So that's a
Rain,
that's all.
yeah, Rain won. I can't remember what, but she won something at the film festival a few years ago, and I've worked on stage with Deanna before.
Okay.
I can't remember what show it was.
Uh,
I can't remember. It was at the Playhouse in Oak Ridge, but we were in that show together. Oh, was it? I don't remember. I don't remember what it was. One of them.
Caleb was at the Playhouse in Clue, I think,
Right.
last year or something. So yeah, they've all been around. Abigail is the youngest, but she's been through some UT stuff, so she's
Right.
very experienced cast.
And our stage manager is Margie Ragsdale, also very experienced actor and a playwright, produced playwright herself. So we've got some real veterans, and they're professionals. And so I feel the work is in really good hands.
Well, good. What? I mean, if you had to boil it down, what is your goal for this play? I mean, other than seeing a full production, I mean, just what is your goal of the work, of the content?
Right. I feel that I always kind of come back to the idea that it's a vessel for both grief and healing. And I think that we're all in need of that kind of place, whether it's within us or something that we can experience outside of ourselves, like seeing a play production and experiencing that kind of transformation that you get when you're in the dark in a theater with all these other people that you may or may not know. You're having a communal, a shared experience of change. It could be a comedy and you're connecting over laughing, that release. Or it can be drama where you're somehow moved and changed to think and to behave differently, perhaps. And that's what I really hope. That's what I believe is so possible about the play.
Okay. Ray?
Yeah, let me ask how you're bringing the history of the Manhattan Project. I know you have Calyatron Girl, so there'll be some reflection there.
Mhm.
But how are you emphasizing or making the audience aware of that portion of the drama?
Right. Well, Linda, some of her first lines are It was a beautiful morning on August the 6th in 1945, and children were going to school, and people were sitting out on their balconies having tea or whatever. And we all knew that as they called the B-29, that Mr. B would come. They knew that Mr. B would somehow come, and and then her world is shattered by, she's looking up at the sky there. So it's like um the bombs are ever present,
Yeah.
and neither the
And
sun
I
way.
had the opportunity
Yeah.
last several months ago now to go to the North Pacific and actually be on Tinian Island, and I also went to Iwo Jima. And I did not expect. I did the Tinian. I knew what to expect there, and it was about what I expected, but I had no idea what Iwo Jima would be like. It's only available to Americans one day a year,
Oh,
and we went there on that day, and I actually climbed Mount Suribachi.
wow.
So yeah, that's that was something I had not anticipated,
My
the
goodness.
kind of impact that island would have. So having the history included, I think is important. And I know there's going to be some perspective from the Calutron girls that's going to be different than what Linda's bringing to it. So you're going to see that. And as Keith mentioned earlier, the family that I knew about, this is in the late 70s, early 80s when they were getting together. So the environment in Oak Ridge was entirely different than it was, as Keith mentioned, in the 50s.
Yeah.
So many of those people that literally experienced that war personally, and I'm not talking so much about the people in Oak Ridge as I'm talking about people who were actually in combat. They had, I believe, they had a harder time reconciling
Oh,
peace between the Japanese and the Americans.
of course. Yeah. When I was first doing my research, I came upon, and these were articles in the Oak Ridger where, and I don't know if you had written this article or not, Ray, but where they were interviewing in their much older age some former Calutron girls. And of course, after they finally understood what they were building and what they had helped create, many were still, yes, we did it to end the war, to bring everyone home, to stop all this brutality and horrific thing that the world was engaged in. But then others were just heartsick and grieving that they had helped to create this. So there was a wide range of emotions from these women, even like what, 50 years later. So I've made the mother of Wade's mother be someone, if she had only known, would she have done that? Or would she have engaged in the building, the
Right.
helping to build that? And then the other, the sister, the aunt, oh, she's still very gung ho. We had to do it. We
Yeah.
had to finish it. And by God, we finished it. So I tried to capture both of those emotions.
I
One,
had, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
yeah, just one other thing about inserting history in that it's not necessarily a linear movement all the way through. There's some flashbacks to Tokyo, but there's I hope it's not a spoiler, but there's one scene in which the characters step out of 1958, step back to
Uh,
1945, and experience the bombing themselves, and so it's kind of nonlinear in that sense, but it's another uh, 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 example of putting the historical perspective in it.
Right.
I had a number of those Calyatron girls that I used over the years. Keith interviewed them for the documentary films that he uh, had, the Oak Ridge story, and I had several occasions where I had people coming from Washington, D.C. in the Department of Energy who wanted to meet Calyatron girls. So there was a time there when, after Denise Kearnan's book, The Girls of Atomic City, that there was a lot of interest in the women who were actually the ones who did the work there. One in particular, Ruth Huddleston, is the last one that I've used, and I used her in a number of presentations. We had her speak over to the University of Tennessee to 400 students over there. And what we would do is I would ask Ruth, what did you think you were doing? And she'd say, I didn't know. I just knew I was doing something to help win the war. And I said, well, what did you think when you learned what you were doing? And she'd say, well, our supervisor told us on August the 6th that we had provided the uranium that went into Little Boy. And she said, I was glad because my boyfriend was in Germany and he'd already told me that he was going to Japan. So I thought I've saved his life.
Yeah.
And then she says, when I got home that night, I heard on the radio and I read in the paper that we had killed a lot of people. And she said, I became so depressed that I couldn't sleep for a week.
Wow.
So you got to know that those kind of emotions went through all of the people who were engaged in creating what helped to win the war, but it also killed a lot of people.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's an intriguing aspect to think about the people that really experienced it, how it affected them.
Right.
Have you had any, even from the reading, have you had any pushback from either side of that perspective? You know, there are still those two perspectives that is still exist, not like it used to, because most of those people, as Ray and I were talking about this week, most of those original Manhattan Project people are gone. You know, and their feeling on it was very strong. But I remember when I first came out with my first the Warriors, Secret City Warriors, I was being interviewed on WUOT, and it was a call-in show, and I had, you know, some guy call in and say, how in the world can you celebrate a war that killed some, you know? And I'm like, this is not, my movie's not about a bomb, you know, my movie's about the people, you know. So I just wondered if you had any pushback on your story.
No, not so far, but I've only had the one public reading. So we shall see. And then, of course, there will be research and opinions presented in the panel discussion after this reading on November the 2nd. So that will be really fascinating to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who's going to be on that panel?
Oh, well, I'll take that one. Yeah, we have Guy Larry Osborne, who is a professor emeritus of psychology at Carson Newman, and some of his studies were on peace psychology or the psychology of peace. We have Edward Sullivan, who lives in Oak Ridge and has written. He's a writer, but he's written some young adult history on the Oak Ridge and the.
I have his book and I know him.
Yeah, he'll be on the panel, and then we have Tanya Moss, who is the director of the Peace Resource Center at Wilmington College in Wilmington, Ohio. And the Peace Resource Center has the Arepa archives, and their purpose is archiving material, particularly about the human effects of Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings, and they're the only archives in the U.S. that focus directly on the effects of the nuclear weapons. So she's the director of that, and she'll be speaking also. So I'm excited about the cast there as
Mm.
well.
I think that'll be an interesting discussion to have after the play. I think that's good.
I agree.
Right. And Ray, I want to thank you. You were willing to read the play in an earlier form and were very kind all along the way. And I just wanted to thank you for that. I'm really grateful for that
Glad
support.
to help any way I can. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for being with us today. We certainly appreciate it. And that, again, tell us when that is. It's November 2nd.
Yes, November 2nd at 2 o'clock, staged reading of Atomic Lullaby, and at River and Rail Theater in downtown Knoxville, which is 111 State Street. It's right off of Jackson. Um, and then again, there will be the panel discussion after the play.
Is there a ticket price?
No, it's
Okay.
free. Please come. I want to bring in as wide a range of an audience as possible. So, and there is a little humor in the play. It's not all totally downer. There's a little humor. There are a couple songs. And so it's basically about a family that's struggling to be a family, which is not an uncommon thing, but they have some extra troubles.
Right. Right.
I
Thank you.
might I might add that with Linda's help, we have published a historically speaking column in the Oak Ridger that will come out this next week. So that'll be there, and then it'll be in the Morgan County Today the
Oh,
following week.
wonderful. Thank you, Ray. That's super.
All right. Well, very good. Well, Kevin, Linda, thank you all so much for being with us. We appreciate it and look forward to your stage reading on November 2nd.
Thank you. Hope
All right. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you.
Ray, who do we have coming up next?
We've got an interesting opportunity. I think I may have mentioned it before when we inserted this one in an off Saturday, but we've got Jacob Cornell from the Oak Ridge National Laboratory who's going to speak to us. And I know he's going to talk about the graphite reactor. I believe he's actually going to be there at the graphite reactor when we have our program. I'm not sure, but I'm looking forward to it. I talked with him when I had a tour going in there a few weeks ago. He did a really good job talking about the history, and he's an example of a younger individual who's really into our history. And those old historians like myself love to see younger folks get interested.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. Well, very good. We'll look forward to that. Okay, folks, thanks for watching. We appreciate it. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks.